How do you write a report explaining that a British officer killed 8 German staff officers with a broadsword in under 90 seconds? Not in chaos, not in confusion, but deliberately, like he was refighting the Battle of Stirling Bridge. I was 24, West Point class of 40, trained in modern combined arms warfare. I watched a man win a firefight with weapons my great-grandfather's great-grandfather used. 83 years later, I still see that blade coming down. I still don't believe any of it was real. The last German officer hit the floor, and Churchill stood there in the middle of the carnage, not even breathing hard. Blood steaming in the cold air. His sword, a Scottish basket-hilt broadsword, real one from the 1700s, dripped onto German paperwork. Strategic plans for the Norwegian coastal defense. He picked up a coffee cup from the table, sniffed it, made a face. "Dreadful," he said. Then he looked at me. "Get those maps, Lieutenant. Whole reason we came. I'm 97 years old now. That was December 1941, a frozen island off the Norwegian coast most people never heard of. And I still can't explain what I saw that morning. Not to my superiors then, not to historians now, not to myself. They'd mocked his sword back in England, called it theatrical, a publicity stunt, improper for modern warfare. But I watched him cut through 8 trained Wehrmacht officers, like they were standing still. How does a medieval weapon beat modern training? This was Operation Archery, December 27th, 1941. British commando raid on Broadsword Island, Norway, one of the first major combined operations of the war. Not Winston Churchill, the other Churchill, Mad Jack, Lieutenant Colonel John Malcolm Thorpe Fleming Churchill, who'd played Ivanhoe in a British film before the war and apparently never stopped. I was there as an American observer. Pearl Harbor was 20 days old. We were still mobilizing, but Roosevelt wanted intelligence on British Special Operations tactics. So they sent me, fresh lieutenant, to tag along with No. 3 Commando and report back. Nobody warned me about Churchill. Nobody said their commanding officer carries a broadsword and a longbow into battle. Nobody mentioned he'd once killed a German with an arrow in France. The raid's objective was simple: destroy the fish oil factories, capture prisoners, tie down German troops. What happened in that headquarters building wasn't standard anything. I met Churchill 3 days before the raid at the commando base in Scotland. He was in the officers' mess polishing that sword, actually polishing it, like he was getting ready for a parade, not an amphibious assault. "You're the American?" He didn't look up. "Come to see how civilized nations wage war?" I said I was there to observe commando tactics. He laughed. "Tactics, grand word. I prefer frightfulness. You terrify the enemy sufficiently, they don't fight back as effectively. Simple psychology." He held up the sword. This, for instance, Fritz sees a man charging with a sword. His brain can't process it. Medieval weapon, modern war. The cognitive dissonance buys you 3 seconds. In 3 seconds, I can kill 4 men. I thought he was joking. He wasn't. The operation briefing was pure military professionalism. Maps of Broadsword, German strength estimated at 150 troops. We'd hit them at dawn with naval gunfire support, destroy the factories, and extract before reinforcements arrived. Churchill pointed to a building marked as German headquarters. "Here, staff officers. Intelligence value. We take it fast." I noticed he'd sketched arrows on his map. Literal arrows. "Sir," I said, "are you actually bringing that bow?" He looked at me like I'd asked if he was bringing his boots. Of course. Any officer who goes into action without his sword is improperly dressed. Around the table, the other officers didn't even blink. Dawn came late that far north. We hit the beach at 0848, landing craft scraping onto rocky shoreline under covering fire from HMS Kenya, freezing, snow on the ground, more falling. Churchill was first off the boat, physically leaping into the surf before the ramp was down, sword in one hand, bow in the other, already screaming. That war cry, Jesus Christ, that sound, like a wounded animal and a battle hymn mixed together. The Germans on the ridge started shooting wild. Churchill hit the beach, found cover, calmly nocked an arrow, and sent it up the slope, 60 yards in wind and snow. I saw a German stumble back from his machine gun position, actually hit with an arrow. See? Churchill grinned. Medieval tactics, modern results. Come on, Yank. Headquarters is inland. Molloy was a fishing town, wooden buildings, narrow streets, everything coated in ice. We worked through the streets with No. 3 Commando, sporadic gunfire, Germans falling back. But there was resistance. Machine gun nest at an intersection, pinning down 2 squads. Churchill assessed it for maybe 5 seconds. Flanking maneuver, I suggested. Too slow, he said. He drew the sword. Follow me or don't. Then he was running toward the machine gun nest, directly at it, screaming that war cry. The Germans tracked him with the MG-42, bullets kicking up snow around his boots. He didn't dodge, just ran straight at them like the bullets couldn't touch him. He reached the sandbags, vaulted over, and the sword came down overhand, splitting the gunner's helmet. Just cleaved it. The loader died next, horizontal slash across the throat. 3 more Germans trying to bring rifles around in close quarters. Churchill's blade work looked like fencing. Parry, riposte, lunge, but heavier, more brutal. He caught one rifle on the cross guard, twisted it away, punched the pommel into the man's face, then ran him through. I was shooting, Thompson on full auto, but I don't think he needed it. The last 2 Germans backed away, terrified. One tried to surrender. Churchill hesitated, then lowered the blade. Smart lad. Down on your knees. He wiped his sword clean. Headquarters next? They'll have heard the fighting, won't expect us quite this fast. Let me explain something about Mad Jack. He wasn't crazy. Every action was calculated, the sword, the bow, the war cry, all of it served a purpose. Modern warfare was about firepower. The Germans knew this. They'd trained for it. Churchill's genius was being unconventional to the point of incomprehensibility. A man charging with a sword doesn't fit any tactical doctrine. The German brain encounters this medieval anachronism and stalls. 3 seconds of confusion. In 3 seconds, Churchill could close 30 yards. In 5 seconds, he could kill you before you remembered how to work your rifle. It was psychological warfare dressed as historical reenactment. And it worked, because nobody expected it. We reached the headquarters around 9:45. Fighting was still heavy in other parts of town. Explosions from the factories, machine gun fire from the waterfront. But this street was quiet. The staff cars were still parked outside, smoke still rising from the chimney, no guards visible. They're in there, Churchill said, probably burning documents, radioing for reinforcements. He studied the building, 2-story stone foundation, textbook defensive position. They'll have rifles covering the door, possibly a machine gun on the stairs. He pulled 2 grenades, handed one to me. Side window, upper floor. Coordinated throws. I go in immediately after. You cover the door. Anyone comes out who isn't me, shoot them. I started to protest. This was suicide, but he was already moving. I positioned myself across the street, Thompson, ready. Watched him count down. 3, 2, 1. The grenades went in simultaneously, shouting, the blast, glass shattering. Churchill went through the side door. I heard that war cry, then screaming, German screaming, then silence. I waited. 30 seconds. A minute. Then Churchill appeared, sword sheathed, arms full of documents. Got the maps. 8 officers, all dead. Come see. The briefing room looked like an abattoir. 8 German officers around a table. Breakfast dishes everywhere, sausages, bread, ersatz coffee, maps scattered, blood, so much blood. Churchill had been efficient. Most died from single wounds, thrust through the rib cage, angled up toward the heart. Fencing technique, precise. 2 had defensive wounds where they tried to grab the blade. 1 was nearly decapitated. They were transmitting when I came in, Churchill said, sorting papers. Got the radio operator first, then worked around the table while they were still stunned. He held up a map. Coastal defense positions all the way to Trondheim. This is gold, Yank. I stared at the bodies. Young men, staff officers, logistics types, doing their jobs. Churchill noticed my expression. War is not gentlemanly, Lieutenant. Never was. Real war is ugly and brutal, and you use whatever gives you advantage. They'd have killed every one of my men without hesitation. I just got to them first. That's when German reinforcements hit. Truck engines, shouting. Churchill looked out. Company's strength. They're trying to cut us off from the beach. He gathered the documents. Time to go. Fighting withdrawal, German troops were deploying in the street, at least 30 visible. Churchill unslung his bow, sent an arrow through the air. A German NCO dropped with a shaft through his neck. Chaos in their ranks. Who's shooting arrows? Now! Churchill shouted. He drew his sword and charged. I followed, Thompson firing, trying to keep up. We hit them before they could organize. Churchill took down 3 with the blade before they registered what was happening. More commandos appeared. Our squads had heard the fighting. The Germans broke, not retreated, broke. They'd lost their officers, and some British lunatic was killing them with a sword. They ran. By 1100 hours, we were back at the beach. The factories were burning. We'd lost 4 men, wounded a dozen. German casualties, 75 killed, nearly 100 captured. Complete success. Churchill was playing his bagpipes, actually playing them. Some Scottish march. The commandos were loading prisoners, securing weapons, and their commanding officer was serenading them. I sat on a rock, exhausted. The man had charged machine gun nests, killed at least 15 Germans, 8 with the sword, several with arrows, the rest in close combat, captured critical intelligence, and led a successful extraction. And now he was playing music like we'd just finished a pleasant exercise. He finished, walked over. Hell of a morning, Lieutenant. You'll have quite a report to write. Do mention the sword. I want your General Marshal to know that British officers maintain proper standards. I didn't know what to say. Sir, I managed, they're going to think I'm lying. He laughed. Good. Let them think it. The Germans certainly will. I tried to write an honest report. Lieutenant Colonel Churchill employed unorthodox close-quarters combat techniques. No, I observed an officer kill 8 enemy personnel with a sword in less than 90 seconds. True, completely unbelievable. I finally wrote a sanitized version, emphasized the raid's success, the intelligence gathered, mentioned aggressive leadership style and effectiveness in close combat, buried the sword in technical language about specialized equipment. My commanding officer read it, called me in. Want to tell me what you left out? I told him everything. The sword, the bow, the war cry, the 8 officers at breakfast, the charge into machine gun fire. He was quiet. Then, we're not including that in official channels. Marshall would think we're running a circus. But off the record, did it work? Yes, sir. Brilliantly. Then God bless the British and their eccentrics. I didn't see Churchill again until 1944, Burma. By then I was a major. Word came that British commandos were operating in our sector. There he was, still carrying that sword, still playing bagpipes. "The American," he said, "how's peacetime warfare treating you?" This was 1944. He'd been captured in Yugoslavia, escaped, captured again, escaped again. The Germans put him in a concentration camp, and he walked out. Convinced the guards he was related to Winston Churchill, talked his way into a transfer, disappeared into Austria. 3 weeks later, he linked up with American forces. "The sword?" I asked. "Lost it in Yugoslavia. Terrible shame. But I found a replacement. Scottish regimental pattern. Not as balanced, but it kills Germans acceptably. He survived the war. Died in 1996, aged 90. Surfing accident, believe it or not. Vogsoy wasn't strategically decisive. We destroyed some factories, gathered intelligence, tied down German troops for a day. In the grand scope of World War II, it barely registers. But it proved the commando concept worked. Hit hard, hit fast, create chaos, extract before the enemy can respond. Special operations doctrine for the rest of the war grew from raids like this. Rangers, Marine Raiders, OSS, all studied British commando tactics. Some studied Churchill specifically, trying to understand his psychological warfare approach. The sword didn't become standard issue, neither did the bow. But the principle, that unconventional methods could create tactical advantages, that stuck. I'm 97 years old now. I commanded troops in Europe, did 2 tours in Korea, taught tactics at West Point for 15 years, saw combat in a half-dozen theaters. None of it prepared me for watching Mad Jack Churchill charge a machine gun nest with a broadsword. December 27th, 1941, 83 years ago. I can still see that sword coming down, still hear that war cry echoing off frozen Norwegian buildings. Still remember the look on those German faces when they realized what was killing them. Confusion, terror, disbelief. I think about the 8 officers at breakfast sometimes. Wonder what they were planning, what the intelligence we captured prevented. Wonder if they knew in those final seconds what was happening. Churchill was fast, but not instantaneous. At least a few must have understood. They were dying by sword in 1941, dying like soldiers had died 1,000 years ago. I wonder if it hurt worse, knowing how absurd it was. Or if death is death, regardless of the weapon. I never mocked his sword. Not after Vogsoy. A few others did. American officers who hadn't seen him fight, who thought it was British eccentricity. I'd just smile and keep quiet. Some things you have to witness to understand. Churchill taught me that warfare isn't about the weapons. It's about the will behind them. You can have the best equipment, the best training, the best tactical doctrine. But if your opponent has the will to do what you want, to charge when he should retreat, to attack when he should defend, to fight with weapons that shouldn't work, but do because he makes them work. Then your advantages mean nothing. He also taught me about fear, not overcoming it. I don't think Mad Jack ever felt fear the way normal people do, but using it, weaponizing it, making the enemy more afraid of you than you are of them. That morning in Molloy, Churchill was outnumbered 70-1, outgunned by every measure. But he won because he made the Germans believe they were fighting something inhuman, something that couldn't be killed with bullets, that ignored all the rules of modern warfare, that came at them wielding medieval steel. He won because he understood that war is as much in the mind as on the battlefield. I still have the maps we captured, declassified now, sitting in my desk drawer. Sometimes I take them out, look at the coffee stains from that breakfast they never finished, and I remember the man with the sword